I never thought that hiring someone to clean my house would lead to the most terrifying discovery of my life. But that's exactly what happened on what should have been an ordinary Tuesday morning in September. Before I begin my story, let me know in the comments where you are listening from and what time it is. I just want to know I'm not alone in this. And if you feel moved by what you hear, consider subscribing. It helps more people become aware of how the secrets we keep can come back to haunt us. Now let me tell you what really happened. My name is Margaret Chen, though everyone calls me Maggie. I'm 62 years old, and for the past 6 months, I've been living alone in the house my husband David and I shared for 35 years. He died suddenly in March. A heart attack while he was working in his study. One moment he was there and the next he was gone. The morning this all started, I was preparing to visit my daughter Jennifer in Portland. It would be my first trip since David passed, and I'd been dreading it for weeks. Not because I didn't want to see Jenny. I missed her terribly, but leaving the house felt like abandoning David somehow, even though I knew that was foolish thinking. I stood in our bedroom at 7 in the morning, staring at my half-packed suitcase on the bed. The early September sun streamed through the lace curtains that I'd hung 20 years ago, the ones David said made the room look like his grandmother's house. I'd threatened to take them down 100 times, but never did. Now I was grateful for them. They were a memory, solid and real. "You're being ridiculous, Margaret," I said aloud to the empty room. Talking to myself had become a habit since David died. The silence in the house was so complete sometimes that I needed to hear a human voice, even if it was just my own. I had made a decision the week before that felt monumental at the time. I was going to hire a cleaning service to come while I was away. The house needed a deep clean, something I hadn't had the energy to do since David's death. Dust had accumulated in corners I used to keep immaculate. The windows had a film on them that dimmed the sunlight. David's study hadn't been touched at all, and I couldn't bring myself to do it. But a stranger could. A stranger wouldn't see David's reading glasses still sitting on his desk and feel their heart break all over again. A stranger would just dust the desk, vacuum the floor, and move on. I had called an agency called Helping Hands Home Services 3 days earlier. The woman on the phone had been kind and professional. She assured me all their employees were background checked and bonded. They'd been in business for 15 years. I could leave my house key in the lockbox by the front door, and the cleaner would let themselves in. "Well, take good care of your home, Mrs. Chen," the woman had promised. "You just enjoy your trip." Now, as I folded a sweater and placed it in my suitcase, I felt a flutter of anxiety in my chest. Was I really comfortable with a stranger in my house? Going through my things, seeing the life David and I had built. I shook my head, trying to dismiss the worry. This was what normal people did. They hired help. They moved on with their lives. They didn't cling to empty houses like life preservers in a storm. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from Jenny. "Mom! Are you on your way yet? Can't wait to see you." I smiled despite my nervousness. Jenny was 33 now, married to a good man named Marcus, and 7 months pregnant with my first grandchild. That baby was the reason I had to start living again, I told myself. I wanted to be a grandmother who was present, not one drowning in grief. Just about to leave, I typed back. "See you this afternoon. Love you." I finished packing, zipped up my suitcase, and carried it downstairs. The house felt bigger in the mornings, more empty. Every sound echoed. The creak of the stairs under my feet, the click of my suitcase wheels on the hardwood floor, the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. In the kitchen, I did one final check. I'd left a note on the counter for the cleaning woman, along with my phone number in case of emergencies. The note was detailed, perhaps too detailed. I'd written instructions about which rooms to focus on, which cleaning products were under the sink, and a request to please be gentle with the items in David's study. "Just dust and vacuum in there," I'd written. "Please don't move anything on the desk. Thank you." I read it over one more time, feeling a surge of protectiveness. That study was the last place I'd seen David alive. I wasn't ready to have it changed, but I also knew it needed care. At 8:30, I put my house key in the lockbox by the front door, just as the agency had instructed. The combination was 1234. David had always teased me about using such an obvious code for everything. "One day, Maggie, someone's going to figure out all your passwords are some version of 1234. He'd say with that gentle smile of his. The memory made my eyes sting with tears. I blinked them away quickly. No crying today. Today was about moving forward. I loaded my suitcase into my silver Honda and took one last look at the house. It was a modest 2-story colonial, white with blue shutters, nestled on a quiet street lined with oak trees. We'd raised both our children here. Jenny and her older brother Tom, who now lived in Boston and called once a month if I was lucky. The house looked peaceful in the morning light, exactly as it always had. Nothing suggested that in just a few hours, Everything I thought I knew about my life would shatter into pieces. I got in the car, started the engine, and pulled out of the driveway. The cleaning woman was scheduled to arrive at 10 o'clock. By then, I'd be halfway to Portland, and my house would be in the hands of a stranger. As I drove down my street, past the Johnsons' house with their perfectly manicured lawn, past the corner where the neighborhood kids waited for the school bus, I felt the anxiety in my chest ease slightly. Maybe this was good. Maybe having someone else care for the house would help me let go of the past, just a little. I turned on the radio, found a station playing old jazz, David's favorite, and allowed myself to relax into the drive. Portland was about 4 hours away. Jenny would have lunch ready. We'd talk about the baby, about names they were considering, about setting up the nursery. Life was going to be okay. I was going to be okay. I had no idea that at that very moment, someone was already inside my house. Someone who had been there for days. Someone who'd been waiting for exactly this moment, when I would be gone, and the house would be vulnerable. And in less than 2 hours, a woman named Rosa Martinez would walk into my home expecting an ordinary day of work, only to make a discovery that would change both of our lives forever. Rosa Martinez had been cleaning houses for 12 years, ever since her husband left and she found herself alone with 2 young children to feed. She'd cleaned penthouses in the city, cluttered apartments where college students lived, and sprawling suburban homes like the one she was driving to that Tuesday morning. She'd seen it all. The messy divorces evident in separate bedrooms, the hidden bottles that spoke of secret drinking problems, the dust-covered exercise equipment that represented abandoned New Year's resolutions. Houses told stories, and Rosa had learned to read them without judgment. Everyone had their struggles, everyone had their secrets. But she'd never walked into anything like what was waiting for her at 847 Maple Drive. Rosa pulled up to the Chen house at exactly 10 o'clock. Punctuality was one of the things that made her valuable to helping hands. That, and her thoroughness. She didn't cut corners. She didn't rush. When Rosa Martinez cleaned your house, it stayed clean. The house looked quiet and well-maintained from the outside. Rosa grabbed her caddy of cleaning supplies from the trunk of her old Toyota and walked up the front path. She noticed the garden beds needed weeding, and the lawn was slightly overgrown. Signs of grief, she thought. The agency had mentioned that Mrs. Chen was a recent widow. Rosa found the lockbox right where the notes said it would be, punched in the combination, and retrieved the key. As she unlocked the front door and stepped inside, she called out, "Hello, Helping Hands Cleaning Service." It was her habit to announce herself, even when she knew a house was supposed to be empty. Better safe than sorry. The house was silent. Rosa closed the door behind her and took a moment to look around. The entryway was neat and traditional, a small table with a bowl for keys, a mirror on the wall, a coat rack with just a few items hanging on it. Everything was tidy, but there was a thin layer of dust on the table that caught the light from the window. She found the note Mrs. Chen had left in the kitchen. Rosa read it carefully, noting the specific instructions about the study. She understood. Some rooms held too many memories to disturb. Rosa started with the kitchen as she always did. She worked methodically, wiping down counters, cleaning the stovetop, scrubbing the sink until it gleamed. The refrigerator was well organized, with containers neatly labeled and stacked. Mrs. Chen was clearly a careful person, someone who liked order. About 45 minutes into her work, Rosa was dusting the living room when she heard it. A soft creak from upstairs, like the sound of someone shifting their weight on old floorboards. She froze, her dustcloth suspended in mid-air. Old houses settled, that's what she told herself. The temperature changes, the wood expands and contracts. It didn't mean anything, but then she heard it again, a definite footstep. Rosa's heart began to pound. She set down her dustcloth and moved quietly toward the staircase. "Hello," she called up. "Ms. Chen, are you home?" No answer, just silence. Rosa stood at the bottom of the stairs, gripping her phone in her pocket. She was probably being paranoid. Maybe it was a cat. But she hadn't seen any evidence of pets. No food bowls, no litter box, no cat hair on the furniture. She climbed the stairs slowly, her footsteps deliberate and loud, giving whoever might be up there plenty of warning. "I'm Rosa from Helping Hands," she called out. "If someone's here, please let me know." A still nothing. The upstairs hallway had 4 doors, 3 open, 1 closed. Rosa checked the open rooms first. A bathroom, clean and unused. A bedroom that looked like it belonged to an adult child, with old posters on the walls and a single bed with a faded comforter. Another bedroom, this one clearly the master, with a made bed and reading glasses on one nightstand. That left the closed door at the end of the hall. Rosa's instincts were screaming at her to leave, to go back downstairs, to call the agency and tell them she felt uncomfortable. But she'd been in this business long enough to know that most fears were unfounded. The door was probably just closed to keep the dust out, or because Mrs. Chen didn't want that room cleaned. She approached the door and knocked. "Hello, is anyone in there?" For a long moment, nothing. Then, so faint she almost missed it, Rosa heard breathing on the other side of the door. Someone was definitely in there, standing just on the other side listening. Rosa's blood went cold. She backed away from the door, her hand fumbling for her phone. This wasn't right. Chen had specifically said no one else was authorized to be in the house. This was supposed to be an empty house. As quietly as she could, Rosa retreated down the hallway. She made it to the top of the stairs when she heard the door handle turn behind her. Someone was opening the door. Rosa didn't look back. She hurried down the stairs, her cleaning supplies forgotten in the living room. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely unlock her phone. But she managed to pull up her recent calls and find Mrs. Chen's number from the note she'd photographed earlier. She pressed the call button and moved toward the front door, keeping her voice low. Please pick up, please pick up, please pick up. The phone rang once. Twice. Rosa glanced back at the staircase expecting to see someone coming down after her. 3 rings, 4. Hello. Mrs. Chen's voice came through, slightly distracted, probably focused on her driving. Rosa moved into the kitchen, putting more distance between herself and the stairs. When she spoke, her voice came out as an urgent whisper. Mom, is anyone else authorized to be in the house? There was a pause on the other end of the line. What? Who is this? This is Rosa from Helping Hands. Mom, I need to know, is anyone else supposed to be here? Is there anyone else who has a key? No. Mrs. Chen's voice had changed, becoming sharp with alarm. No one else should be there. Rosa, what's happening? Why are you whispering? Rosa's eyes were fixed on the doorway to the living room, watching for any movement. Her voice was barely audible. There's a woman upstairs. The silence on the other end of the line lasted only a heartbeat, but it felt like an eternity. Then Mrs. Chen's voice came through, high and panicked. Get out of there now! Rosa, get out of my house right now and call the police. Rosa didn't need to be told twice. She ran for the front door, yanked it open, and burst out onto the porch. She ran down the front path and didn't stop until she reached her car on the street. Only then did she turn around to look at the house. In the upstairs window, the one at the end of the hall, the room with the closed door, Rosa saw a figure. A woman with dark hair, standing perfectly still, looking down at her. Their eyes met for just a second before the woman stepped back from the window, disappearing into the shadows of the room. Rosa's hands were shaking so violently she could barely hold her phone. But she managed to dial 911, keeping her eyes locked on that upstairs window, waiting to see if the woman would appear again. 911, what's your emergency? There's someone in a house where they're not supposed to be, Rosa said, her voice trembling. I'm a cleaning woman, and the owner said no one else should be here, but there's a woman upstairs. I think she's been hiding in there. As she gave the address to the dispatcher, Rosa thought about that figure in the window. The woman hadn't looked surprised to see Rosa. She hadn't looked scared or guilty about being caught. She'd looked like she belonged there, like she'd been waiting for this moment all along. And that, somehow, was the most frightening thing of all. I was somewhere on Interstate 5, listening to Miles Davis and thinking about what kind of rocking chair I should buy for Jenny's nursery, when my phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, but I remembered I'd left it for the cleaning woman. I answered on the car's Bluetooth, expecting a simple question about where I kept the vacuum bags or whether she should clean the windows. Hello. Mom. Is anyone else authorized to be in the house? The voice was a whisper, urgent and frightened. It took me a moment to process what she was asking, and even then, it didn't make sense. What? Who is this? This is Rosa from Helping Hands. Mom, I need to know, is anyone else supposed to be here? Is there anyone else who has a key? My foot eased off the gas pedal instinctively. Something in her voice made my stomach clench. No one else should be there. Rosa, what's happening? Why are you whispering? There was a pause, and then 3 words that made my blood run cold. There's a woman upstairs. For a moment my brain simply refused to accept what I'd heard. A woman upstairs. In my house. The house that should have been empty. The house where I'd lived safely for 35 years. Get out of there now. I screamed into the phone, no longer caring about the peaceful drive or the jazz or any of it. Rosa, get out of my house right now and call the police. I heard running footsteps, a door opening, and then Rosa's ragged breathing as she said, I'm out. I'm calling them now. The line went dead. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles had turned white. My heart was hammering against my ribs. A woman upstairs. Someone had been in my house. Someone might still be in my house. I jerked the car to the right, cutting across a lane of traffic to reach the shoulder. Horns blared behind me, but I didn't care. I couldn't drive like this. I couldn't think like this. My hands were shaking as I pulled up my recent calls and dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? Someone is in my house, I said, my voice coming out high and strange. I'm not there. I'm on the highway. But my cleaning woman just called me and there's someone in my house who shouldn't be there. Mom, what's the address? I gave them my address, stumbling over the numbers I'd said 1,000 times. 847 Maple Drive. Please, you have to send someone. My cleaning woman is there and she said there's a woman upstairs. Officers are already on their way, ma'am. We received a call about this address 2 minutes ago. Where are you currently? I'm on I-5 about 2 hours away. I was driving to Portland. The house was supposed to be empty. I was talking too fast, the words tumbling over each other. No one should be there. No one has a key except me and my children, and they're both out of state. Madam, I need you to stay calm. Do you have somewhere safe you can pull over? I'm already pulled over. I realized I was crying, tears streaming down my face without my permission. What's happening? Who's in my house? Officers are arriving at the scene now. Can you stay on the line with me? I nodded, then remembered she couldn't see me. Yes, I'll stay. The next few minutes felt like hours. I sat in my car on the shoulder of the interstate, watching traffic whiz past, while the 911 dispatcher stayed on the line with me. She asked me questions. When had I left the house? Who else had access? Had I noticed anything unusual in the past few days? Had I noticed anything unusual? I thought about that question, really thought about it for the first time. Had there been signs? Things I'd dismissed or ignored? Mom, are you still there? Yes, I'm here. I'm trying to think. There were some things that seemed off, but I thought I was imagining it. What kinds of things? Food missing from the refrigerator. Not much, just I thought I had more eggs than I did. And I kept finding the bathroom light on in the morning when I was sure I'd turned it off the night before. But I thought I was just being forgetful. I'm 62, and since my husband died, I trailed off, not wanting to admit how scattered I'd been. That's helpful information, ma'am. How long ago did these things start happening? I thought back, trying to remember. Maybe a week. 10 days. I didn't really pay attention a week. Someone had potentially been in my house for a week, and I hadn't known. The thought made me feel sick. Mom, the officers are inside the house now. They're conducting a search. Did they find her? Is she still there? I don't have that information yet. Please stay on the line. I sat there, gripping my phone, staring at nothing. My mind was racing through possibilities, each one more terrifying than the last. A burglar. But nothing had been stolen as far as I knew. A squatter, how had they gotten in? I was always so careful about locking doors and windows. My phone buzzed with an incoming call. Jenny. I couldn't talk to her right now. Couldn't tell her what was happening. I sent it to voicemail. Mom. The dispatcher's voice pulled me back. The officers would like to speak with you. I'm going to transfer you to Detective Martinez. There was a click, and then a new voice came on the line. Male, calm, professional. Mrs. Chen. This is Detective James Martinez with the Riverside Police Department. I'm at your residence now. Did you find her? The woman who was upstairs. Mrs. Chen, the house is secure now. We did find evidence that someone has been staying in your attic. The access panel was open, and we found some personal belongings up there. The attic. Someone had been living in my attic. I felt dizzy, like the world had tilted sideways. We also found the woman. She was hiding in a bedroom at the end of the hall when we arrived. She's in custody now. Who is she? My voice came out as a whisper. Who was in my house? There was a pause. Detective Martinez's tone changed, becoming more careful. Mrs. Chen, the woman has been identified. Her name is Sarah Chen. She claims to be your husband's daughter. The world stopped. Sarah Chen, David's daughter. That's impossible, I heard myself say. David only had 2 children, Tom and Jennifer. There's no Sarah. Mum, I understand this is a shock. The woman has provided identification, and she's been asking to speak with you. She says she's been trying to reach you for months. Trying to reach me by breaking into my house and hiding in my attic. My voice was rising, hysteria creeping in. That doesn't make any sense. None of this makes any sense. Mrs. Chen, I think it would be best if you came home. There are some things we need to discuss, and there are some items we found that you should see. What items? Letters, Mrs. Chen, and bank statements. There's a lockbox that was hidden in your husband's study. The woman knew exactly where to find it. I couldn't breathe. The car felt too small, too hot. David's study. The room I'd asked Rosa to be gentle with, the room I couldn't bear to clean myself because it hurt too much to see his things. I'm on my way. I managed to say. I'll be there as soon as I can. Drive safely, ma'am. The house is secure. We'll be here when you arrive. I ended the call and sat there for a moment, staring at my hands on the steering wheel. They looked like a stranger's hands, pale and trembling. Sarah Chen, David's daughter. I thought about my husband of 35 years. The man who'd held my hand through childbirth twice, who'd stayed up late helping our kids with homework, who'd brought me tea every morning and kissed my forehead before he left for work. The man who, apparently, had kept a daughter's secret from me for our entire marriage. I picked up my phone and called Jenny. Mom, Where are you? I've been trying to. Honey, I'm not coming to Portland. My voice sounded dead even to my own ears. Something's happened. I need to go back home. Mom. What's wrong? Are you okay? I don't know, I said honestly. I really don't know. I ended the call before she could ask more questions, before I had to say the words out loud and make them real. Then I put the car in gear, checked my mirrors, and merged back onto the interstate. But this time, I wasn't driving toward my daughter and my future grandchild and a fresh start. I was driving back toward my past, toward a house full of secrets, toward a woman who claimed to be my husband's daughter. Back toward the truth that had been hiding in my attic, waiting for me to finally see it. The drive back to Riverside was the longest 2 hours of my life. Every mile felt like 10. Every minute stretched into an eternity. My mind wouldn't stop racing, circling around the same impossible facts. David had another daughter, a daughter I'd never known about. A daughter who'd been living in our attic, going through our things, sleeping above my head while I lay in bed alone, grieving for a man I apparently never really knew. I called Tom first. He deserved to hear it from me, not from the police or, God forbid, the news. Mom, what's up? He sounded distracted, probably busy at work. Tom was always busy. Tommy, something's happened. I need you to listen. The tone of my voice must have gotten through to him because he went quiet immediately. What's wrong? Are you okay? I'm fine physically. But there was someone in the house, a woman. The police found her hiding in the attic. What? Mom, are you serious? Were you there? Are you hurt? No, I'd already left. The cleaning woman found her. I took a breath, steadying myself. Tom, the woman says she's your father's daughter. Her name is Sarah Chen. The silence on the other end lasted so long I thought the call had dropped. That's bullshit, he said finally, his voice hard. Dad didn't have another kid. This is some scam artist, Mom. Some psycho who read Dad's obituary and thought she could take advantage of you. The police found letters, Tom, and bank statements. She knew where your father kept things hidden in his study. Another long silence. When Tom spoke again, his voice was different, younger. Scared. What kind of letters? I don't know yet. I'm on my way back now. The detective said I should see them myself. I'm getting on a plane. I'll be there tonight. You don't have to. Mom, some crazy woman was living in your house. Whether she's related to us or not, I'm coming home. Jenny too, probably once you tell her. I already called her. I told her something happened, but not all of it yet. I'll call her. We'll figure this out together, okay? Don't go into the house alone. Wait for me. The police are there, Tommy. It's safe. I don't care. Promise me you'll wait. I promised, even though I knew I was lying. I couldn't wait. I needed to see this Sarah Chen. I needed to look her in the eyes and know if she was telling the truth. Because somewhere, in the part of my heart I didn't want to examine too closely, I already knew she was. When I pulled onto Maple Drive, there were 2 police cars parked in front of my house. The sight of them there, with their lights off but still so obviously official, made my stomach clench. My neighbors were going to have questions. Johnson was probably already peeking through her curtains, making mental notes for the neighborhood gossip chain. I parked in my driveway and sat for a moment, looking at the house that had been my home for more than 3 decades. It looked the same as it had this morning, white with blue shutters, peaceful and ordinary. But everything had changed. Detective Martinez met me at the door. He was in his 40s with kind eyes and the patient demeanor of someone who delivered bad news many times before. Mrs. Chen, thank you for coming back so quickly. Where is she? I asked, not bothering with pleasantries. Where's the woman who was in my house? She's at the station. We took her in for questioning. But Mrs. Chen, before we discuss her, I need to show you what we found. He led me inside my own house, and it felt surreal, like I was a stranger here. Rosa was sitting in my living room with another officer, giving a statement. She looked up when I entered, her eyes full of concern. Mrs. Chen, I'm so sorry. I should have checked the whole house before. You did exactly what you should have done. I interrupted. You got yourself to safety and called for help. Thank you, Rosa. Thank you for being smart and careful. She nodded, tears in her eyes. I was so scared for you, thinking you were coming home to that. Detective Martinez cleared his throat. Mrs. Chen, if you'll follow me upstairs. We climbed the stairs, and with each step I felt like I was ascending toward some terrible revelation. He led me to the end of the hall, to the door that had always opened onto my craft room, the place where I kept my sewing machine and fabric and half-finished quilts. But when he opened the door, I saw that the room looked different. My sewing things had been pushed to the sides. In the center of the ceiling, the attic access panel was pulled down, the folding ladder extended. She'd been living up there, Detective Martinez explained. She'd come down at night when she thought you were asleep. We found evidence she'd been using your bathroom, taking food from your kitchen. She was very careful not to take too much at once. I stared at the ladder, trying to imagine a stranger creeping around my house while I slept. The woman I'd heard walking to the bathroom at night. I'd thought it was just old pipes settling, or my imagination, or grief playing tricks on my mind. Would you like to see what we found in the attic? I didn't want to, but I nodded anyway. The detective climbed up first, then offered me a hand. I'd only been in the attic a handful of times in all the years we'd lived here. David had always been the one to go up there to retrieve Christmas decorations or store things away. David, who apparently had stored more than old holiday ornaments up here. The attic was dim, lit only by a bare bulb. But even in the weak light, I could see the makeshift living space someone had created. A sleeping bag spread out on top of some old blankets, a backpack with clothes spilling out, several water bottles, granola bar wrappers, and scattered around the sleeping area dozens of photographs. I picked up the closest one, my hands shaking. It showed David, my David, but younger, maybe in his late 20s. He was smiling at the camera, his arm around a woman I'd never seen before. She was small and dark-haired with a shy smile, and she was very pregnant. "Oh God," I whispered. Detective Martinez handed me another photo. This one showed David holding a newborn baby, his face full of joy and wonder. The same expression he'd had when Tom was born, when Jenny was born. "There are more?" the detective said gently. "Birthday cards. Letters. And this." He handed me a small lockbox. It wasn't locked. Inside were bank statements showing monthly transfers to an account under the name Sarah M. Chen. The transfers went back years, decades. $500 a month, every month, like clockwork. The most recent transfer was dated 2 weeks before David died. "The M stands for Marie," Detective Martinez said. "That was Sarah's mother's name. Marie Brennan. She died 3 years ago, according to Sarah." I couldn't speak, couldn't think. The evidence was there in my hands, but my brain still refused to fully accept it. "Mrs. Chen, I know this is overwhelming, but there's something else you need to know." He hesitated, then continued. "According to Sarah, your husband was planning to tell you about her. She has emails from him, dated from last February. He said he was going to come clean, that he couldn't keep living with the lie anymore." February, 1 month before David died. "He never got the chance," I said numbly. "No, Mom. And after he died, Sarah says she tried to reach out to you. She sent letters to this address. Did you receive any letters from someone named Sarah?" I thought back to the weeks after David's funeral. The flood of sympathy cards and letters. I'd barely been able to read them, had stuffed most of them in a drawer to deal with later. Had one of them been from her? From this daughter I didn't know existed? "I don't know," I admitted. "I might have. I wasn't in a good place." She said when you didn't respond, she became desperate. She needed proof of who she was, documentation that would support her claim. She knew her father had kept things in his study, so he gestured around the attic. "She found a way in." I asked, "How did she get into my house?" "The basement window. The latch is broken." She said she'd been watching the house, and she saw that it wasn't secure. "She's been here for 8 days. 8 days. A week and a day. Living above my head, watching me grieve for a man who'd kept her existence secret for more than 3 decades. I looked down at the photo in my hands again. David, young and happy, holding his newborn daughter. A daughter he'd supported financially but never claimed publicly. A daughter he'd apparently loved but kept hidden from his family, from me. "I want to see her," I said. "I want to talk to Sarah." Detective Martinez nodded slowly. "I thought you might. But Mrs. Chen, technically, she did break into your home. She trespassed. You have the right to press charges." "I want to see her first," I said firmly. "Then I'll decide, because despite everything, the fear, the anger, the betrayal, there was another emotion rising up inside me, a strange, complicated feeling that I couldn't quite name. This woman, this Sarah, was David's daughter, which meant she was Tom and Jenny's half-sister, which meant she was part of our family, whether I'd known about her or not. And family, even family that hurt you, even family born from lies. "Take me to her," I said. "Please. I need to understand." The police station was a 15-minute drive from my house, but it felt like crossing into another world. Detective Martinez drove while I sat in the passenger seat, clutching my purse in my lap like a lifeline. He'd offered to have an officer bring my car later, and I'd accepted numbly, not trusting myself to drive. We didn't speak much during the ride. What was there to say? The detective had already shown me the evidence. Now I needed to see the person behind it. Sarah Chen, David's secret daughter. The ghost that had been haunting my house. Inside the station, Detective Martinez led me through a maze of corridors to a small room with a table and chairs. "She's agreed to speak with you," he said. "You don't have to do this, Mrs. Chen. You can press charges and never see her." "I need to," I said. "I need to hear it from her." He nodded and opened the door. The woman sitting at the table looked up when I entered, and my breath caught in my throat. She had David's eyes. The same deep brown, the same slight downward tilt at the outer corners. The same way of looking at you that made you feel truly seen. I'd fallen in love with those eyes 40 years ago, and here they were, staring at me from a stranger's face. She was in her mid-30s, I guessed, with long dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She was small and thin, wearing jeans and a faded sweatshirt. Her hands were clasped on the table in front of her, and I could see they were trembling. "Mrs. Chen," she said softly. "Thank you for coming. I know you don't owe me anything, but thank you." I sat down across from her, my legs unsteady. Detective Martinez remained by the door, giving a space but staying close enough to intervene if needed. "You have his eyes," I said. It wasn't what I'd planned to say. I'd planned to demand answers, to ask her how she could justify breaking into my home. But those words came out instead. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "Everyone says that. My mom used to tell me I had my father's eyes and his stubborn chin." She touched her jaw self-consciously. "Tell me," I said, my voice harder now. "Tell me everything. From the beginning." She took a shaky breath and nodded. "My mother's name was Marie Brennan. She met my father in 1989 before he married you. They dated for about a year. She got pregnant, and when she told him, he panicked. He was 25, I said, doing the math in my head. We'd gotten married in 1990. David had been 26, yes. He was young, just starting his career. And he'd already met you by then. He told my mother he couldn't be with her, that he was going to marry someone else. But he promised he'd take care of me, financially at least. $500 a month. I said, remembering the bank statements. Every month of my life until he died. He never missed a payment. Not once." Her voice broke. "He kept his word about that, at least. Did you ever meet him?" The question hurt to ask. Sarah's tears spilled over. "A few times. When I was little, he'd come to visit on my birthday. Just for an hour or two, he'd bring presents and sit with me and my mom. He'd read me stories." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "The last time I saw him in person, I was 12. My mom said it was getting too complicated, too dangerous. He had his real family to think about. His real family." The words stung even though I understood what she meant, but he never stopped paying. "And when I got older, we started emailing. Nothing too personal, just checking in. I'd tell me about school, and later, about my job. He sent me money for college. He helped me when my mom got sick." "When did she die?" I asked. 3 years ago. "Cancer." Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. "After she died, I had no one. Dad was all I had left, even if I could only talk to him through emails. Even if I could never be part of his real life." "So you contacted him more?" "Yes, and he changed, Mrs. Chen. Something in him changed after my mom died. He started saying that keeping me a secret was the biggest mistake of his life. That he wanted to tell his other children. He said he was tired of lying." I remembered that time. 3 years ago. David had seemed more contemplative, quieter than usual. I'd asked him if something was wrong, and he'd said he was just thinking about mortality, about what mattered in life. I thought it was a midlife crisis. It was guilt. "He said he was going to tell me," I said. "The detective mentioned emails from last February." Sarah nodded eagerly, pulling out her phone. "I have them. I wanted to show you. I need you to know I'm not making this up." She scrolled through her phone and handed it to me. I read the email with shaking hands. "Sarah, I've made a decision. I can't keep living this lie. You're my daughter, and you deserve to be acknowledged. Tom and Jenny deserve to know they have a sister. And Margaret. Margaret deserves the truth, even if it destroys everything. I'm going to tell her next month. I'm terrified, but it's time. Whatever happens, I want you to know that not claiming you publicly was my greatest failure. You are not a mistake. You never were. Love, Dad." The email was dated February 14th, Valentine's Day. "David had died March 22nd. He never got to tell you," Sarah said, watching me read. "And after he died, I didn't know what to do. I wrote to you, Mrs. Chen. I sent 3 letters. Did you get them?" I thought about the drawer full of unopened condolence cards. I might have. I couldn't read everything. There were too many, and I was grieving. "I know." She pulled her phone back. "When you didn't respond, I got desperate. The check stopped coming, obviously. I couldn't pay my rent. I lost my job because I was such a mess after he died. I had nowhere to go and no one to help me. So you broke into my house," I said, and there was anger in my voice now. "You hid in my attic like a criminal. I know. I know it was wrong." Fresh tears streamed down her face. "But I needed proof. I needed something that would make you believe me, that would prove I was really his daughter. I knew he kept things in his study. He'd mentioned it once in an email. I thought if I could just find documentation, birth certificate records, something." "You terrified me," I said, my voice rising. "You terrified my cleaning woman. You could have been anyone. You could have hurt me. I would never." She started, but I cut her off. "I didn't know that. All I knew was that a stranger was in my house, living above my head, going through my things. Do you know what that feels like? To find out your home isn't safe, that someone's been watching you. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I'm so sorry. I didn't know what else to do. I have no money, no family, nowhere to go. He was my father, and when he died, I lost the only person who knew I existed. I sat back in my chair, feeling the weight of it all crash over me. This broken woman across from me with David's eyes and David's stubbornness wasn't a villain. She was just lost. Lost and desperate and drowning in grief, just like I had been. Just like I still was. Show me your birth certificate, I said finally. She reached into a folder on the table and pulled out a worn document. I read it carefully. Sarah Marie Chen. Born October 15, 1989. Mother Marie Ann Brennan. Father David Michael Chen. David's full name. There it was, in black and white. Legal proof of what he'd kept hidden for 35 years. I have his obituary too, Sarah said quietly. I cut it out of the newspaper. It listed his wife Margaret and his children Thomas and Jennifer. It didn't mention me. At his own funeral, I didn't exist. The pain in her voice was raw and real. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw not a threat or a criminal, but a woman who'd spent her entire life as a secret. Who'd loved her father from the shadows, who'd never gotten to be part of family photos or holiday dinners or any of the thousand small moments that made up a family. What do you want from me? I asked. Why did you need to see me so badly? I want to know him, she said simply. The real him, not just the man who sent emails and birthday money. I want to know what he was like at home, what made him laugh, what he liked to eat for breakfast. I want to know my father, and you're the only one who can tell me. It was such a simple request. And yet it felt monumental. And, she continued, her voice barely audible, I wanted to meet my brother and sister. If they'll have me. If any of you will have me. I closed my eyes, feeling the tears come. For David, who'd carried this secret to his grave. For Sarah, who'd been denied a father's love in any public way. For Tom and Jenny, who were about to learn their family was more complicated than they'd ever imagined. And for myself, because the man I'd mourned, the marriage I'd thought was solid and true, had all been built on a foundation of lies. When I opened my eyes again, Sarah was watching me with something like hope on her face. I'm not pressing charges, I heard myself say. Her eyes widened, Mrs. Chen. But, I continued firmly, we're going to do this the right way. No more hiding, no more secrets. If you want to be part of this family, then we deal with this together. In the open. Les, she breathed. Yes, anything. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, I said. Tom and Jenny need to know, and I can't promise how they'll react. I can't promise they'll accept you. I need time, I added. Time to process this. Time to figure out how I feel about everything. Of course. I stood up, my legs weak but holding. Detective Martinez moved toward the door, ready to escort me out, but I paused and looked back at Sarah. Do you have somewhere to stay? Somewhere safe? She shook her head. Not really. I've been staying in my car when I wasn't in your attic. I took a deep breath, knowing I was about to do something possibly foolish but somehow necessary. There's a motel about 2 miles from my house. The Riverside Inn. I'll pay for a room for you for a week. That gives us time to figure this out properly. Mrs. Chun, you don't have to. I know I don't have to, but I'm gonna anyway. Because whatever David did or didn't do, whatever mistakes he made, you're his daughter. And that means something. As I walked out of that interrogation room, leaving Sarah Chen crying tears of relief, I realized something. I was angry at David. Furious even. But I was also still in love with him, still grieving for him. And now I had to grieve for the marriage I thought I'd had while somehow making space for the daughter he'd left behind. It was messy and complicated and unfair, but then again so was life. So was family. So was love. Tom arrived at 9 o'clock that night. I was sitting in my kitchen. The same kitchen where I'd left a note for Rosa that morning, a lifetime ago. When I heard his rental car pull into the driveway, he let himself in with his key, calling out, Mom. His voice was tight with worry. In the kitchen, honey. He appeared in the doorway, still in his business suit from work, looking rumpled and exhausted from the rushed flight. But when he saw me sitting there alive and whole, relief flooded his face. Mom. He crossed the room and pulled me into a fierce hug. Are you okay? Tell me everything. I held on to my son, breathing in the familiar smell of his cologne, and for a moment let myself be comforted. Tom was 35, successful, confident. But right now, he felt like my little boy again, worried about his mother. When he finally released me, I gestured to the chair across from me. Sit down, Tommy. We need to talk. Over the next hour, I told him everything. The phone call from Rosa, the discovery in the attic, the confrontation at the police station. I showed him the photos, the bank statements, the birth certificate. I watched his face cycle through disbelief, anger, hurt, and finally, a kind of numb acceptance. I can't believe it, he said, staring at a photo of David holding baby Sarah. Dad had another kid. All this time and he never said a word. He was going to, I said, showing him the email. He was going to tell us. He just ran out of time. Tom read the email, his jaw clenching. That doesn't make it okay. He had 35 years to tell the truth, Mom. 35 years. I know. And you're just accepting this. You're paying for her hotel room. What else should I do, Tommy? She's your father's daughter. That makes her family. She broke into our house. His voice rose. She lived in our attic like some kind of stalker. That's not okay, Mom. I don't care what her sob story is. She was desperate. So what? Lots of people are desperate. They don't break into houses. He stood up, pacing the kitchen. This is crazy. You're being too nice. Too forgiving. She could have hurt you, but she didn't. Tom, she's not a monster. She's just a young woman who lost both her parents and doesn't have anyone else. She wanted to know her father, and she wanted to meet her siblings. He stopped pacing and stared at me. Don't call her my sibling. I have one sibling, Jenny. That's it. Tom, no, Mom. You might be ready to play happy family with Dad's secret kid, but I'm not. And I guarantee Jenny won't be either. He grabbed his phone. Speaking of Jenny, I need to call her. She's been texting me nonstop. Wait, I said, reaching for his arm. Let me call her. She's 7 months pregnant, Tom. This news needs to be delivered carefully. He hesitated, then nodded. Fine. But I'm staying right here when you do it. I called Jenny on FaceTime. When her face appeared on the screen, I could see the worry in her eyes. Mom, Tom said he's at your house. What's going on? Why didn't you come to Portland? Honey, I need to tell you something. And I need you to sit down. I'm already sitting. Mom, you're scaring me. I took a breath and told her. Unlike Tom, who'd been in person where I could control the pace, Jenny heard it all at once through a phone screen. I watched her face change as the story unfolded. Confusion, shock, betrayal, and then anger. Are you kidding me? She said when I finished. Please tell me this is some kind of sick joke. It's not a joke, sweetheart. Dad had another daughter. Dad? She was crying now, her voice breaking. The man who coached my soccer team and helped me with my homework and walked me down the aisle had a whole other child he never told us about. Jenny? And you just accepted this? You met with her? Mom, she broke into your house? I know how this sounds. Do you? Because it sounds like you've lost your mind. This woman terrorized you, and now you're paying for her hotel room. Jenny wiped her tears angrily. What's next? Are we inviting her to Thanksgiving? Tom spoke up from beside me. That's what I said. Mom, please. Jenny continued. Please tell me you're pressing charges. Tell me you're not letting her get away with this. She's your half-sister, Jenny. No. No, she's not. I don't care what some birth certificate says. She's a stranger who happened to share DNA with Dad. That doesn't make her family. I felt something crack inside my chest. When did my children become so cold? I asked quietly. When did you both become people who can't show compassion to someone who's hurting? Compassion. Tom's voice was sharp. Mom, wake up. This woman isn't some innocent victim. She stalked you. She invaded your privacy. And now she's manipulating you into feeling sorry for her. She's not manipulating me. Then why are you defending her? Jenny interrupted. Why are you taking her side over ours? I'm not taking sides. There are no sides here. We're all dealing with the same betrayal. We all just found out that David kept this enormous secret from us. We're all hurt and angry and confused. Sarah is going through the same thing we are. Except she's known her whole life, Tom said. She grew up knowing about us. We're the ones who were kept in the dark. He was right, and I knew it. But somehow that made Sarah's situation seem even more tragic. She'd grown up knowing she had a father who couldn't claim her, siblings who didn't know she existed, a whole family she could never be part of. I need you both to understand something, I said, looking between Tom on the screen and Jenny in the phone. I loved your father. I still love him, even though right now I'm angrier at him than I've ever been at anyone in my life. But love doesn't stop just because someone disappoints you. And family is complicated. It's messy. It's not always fair. So we're just supposed to accept her. Jenny asked. I'm asking you to meet her. Just meet her, talk to her, and then decide how you feel. No, Tom said flatly. Absolutely not. Tom said, no, Mom, I'm not meeting her. I'm not playing along with this fantasy where we all become one big happy family. Dad made his choices, and one of those choices was to keep her separate from us. Maybe there was a reason for that. He regretted that choice. I said, my voice rising. He wanted to tell us. He wanted to make it right. But he didn't? Tom shot back. He had 35 years and he didn't. Maybe he knew we'd react exactly like this. Maybe he knew it would tear the family apart. Tom's right, Jenny said from the phone. Dad kept her away for a reason, Mom. You need to respect that. I looked at my 2 children, the ones David and I had raised together, the ones whose lives had been full of love and security and family dinners around this very table. And I saw people I barely recognized. People who were so hurt by their father's betrayal that they couldn't see past their own pain to someone else's. Or maybe I was the one who couldn't see clearly. Maybe they were right and I was being manipulated. Maybe my grief had made me vulnerable to Sarah's story. But when I thought about her sitting in that interrogation room, with David's eyes and 35 years of secrets weighing on her shoulders, I knew I couldn't turn my back on her. I'm meeting her tomorrow, I said. At a coffee shop downtown. I'm going to talk to her more, try to understand what her life has been like. You're both welcome to join me, but I'll understand if you don't want to. I'm staying here to make sure you're safe, Tom said. But I'm not meeting her. I'm not coming at all, Jenny said. Mom, I love you, but I can't support this. I can't pretend that what she did was okay. I'm not asking you to pretend anything, I said tiredly. I'm just asking you to have an open mind. After we hung up with Jenny, Tom and I sat in silence for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. Are you sure about this, Mom? Really sure? No, I admitted. I'm not sure about anything anymore. 6 months ago, I lost my husband. Today, I found out my marriage was built on a lie. I don't know what I'm doing, Tom. I'm just trying to do what feels right. He sighed and reached across the table to take my hand. I'm worried about you. I'm worried you're going to get hurt even more than you already have been. Maybe I will. But Tommy, what if she's telling the truth? What if she really is just a young woman who lost everyone and doesn't know where else to turn? What if we're her last chance at having a family? Then that's Dad's fault, not ours. We didn't create this situation. No, we didn't. But we get to choose how we respond to it, and I'm choosing compassion. Even if it's messy. Even if it hurts. Tom was quiet for a moment, then squeezed my hand. I love you, Mom. Even when I think you're making a mistake. I love you too, honey. And I hope I'm not making a mistake. I hope that somewhere, somehow, your father is watching and grateful that we're trying to clean up the mess he left behind. That night, I lay in bed in the house that suddenly felt both familiar and strange. Someone had been living above my head, breathing the same air, existing in the same space. The thought should have terrified me. Instead, I found myself thinking about Sarah as a little girl, waiting for her father to visit on her birthday, watching him leave after an hour, going back to his real family. Growing up with only photographs and emails and $500 a month to prove she mattered to someone. And I thought about David, carrying this secret for 35 years. The weight of it, the guilt, the fear of losing everything if the truth came out. He'd been a coward, but he'd also been human. And now it was up to me to decide what came next. To choose between protecting my children's memories of their father and giving his secret daughter a place in our lives. Tomorrow I would meet Sarah again. Tomorrow I would start trying to understand the full truth of the man I'd loved. Tomorrow, I would begin the impossible task of forgiveness. I met Sarah at a small coffee shop called The Daily Grind, 2 days after the police found her in my attic. Tom had wanted to come with me, for protection, he said, but I'd insisted on going alone. This conversation needed to happen without an audience, without my children's anger clouding the air between us. She was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee in front of her. She stood up when she saw me, uncertainty written all over her face. I didn't know what you liked, so I got you a regular coffee with cream on the side, she said. I hope that's okay. It's perfect, I said, sitting down across from her. Thank you. We sat in awkward silence for a moment, both of us stirring our coffee, neither quite knowing how to begin. Finally, Sarah spoke. Mrs. Chen, I want you to know that I understand if you hate me. I understand if you never want to see me again after today. What I did was unforgivable. What you did was desperate. I corrected her. And desperate people do things they wouldn't normally do. That doesn't make it right. No, it doesn't. But it makes it human. I took a sip of my coffee, gathering my thoughts. Sarah, I need you to understand something. I'm not your enemy. But I'm also not ready to be your friend. Right now, I'm just someone trying to make sense of a situation that makes no sense. She nodded, tears already forming in her eyes. I understand. Tell me about your mother, I said. Tell me about Marie. Sarah's face softened at the mention of her mother's name. She was wonderful, kind and patient and so strong. She raised me by herself, worked 2 jobs to make sure I had everything I needed. She never spoke badly about Dad, never made me feel like I was a mistake. But you knew he had another family, yes. She told me when I was old enough to understand. She said my father was a good man who'd made a difficult choice, and that he loved me even if he couldn't be with me. Sarah wiped her eyes. I used to fantasize about what it would be like to meet you all. To have a big family with siblings and holidays together, but Mom would always remind me that it wasn't possible, that Dad had chosen his path and we had to respect it. Did you resent us? I asked. Tom and Jenny and me. She was quiet for a long moment, sometimes. Especially when I was younger. I'd see pictures of you all online, Tom's graduation, Jenny's wedding, and I'd think about how I should have been there. How I should have been in those photos too. She looked up at me, her eyes full of pain. But mostly I just felt sad. Sad that I couldn't know you. Couldn't be part of something that looked so full of love. I felt my own tears starting. It was full of love. David was a good father to Tom and Jenny. A good husband to me. But now I look back on all those moments you mentioned, and I wonder, was he thinking about you? Was there always this shadow of guilt hanging over him? I think there was, Sarah said softly. In his last emails he talked about how he couldn't enjoy family moments anymore without thinking about me. How every birthday, every holiday he felt like a fraud. Good, I said, and the bitterness in my voice surprised even me. He should have felt like a fraud. Because that's what he was. He was living a lie every single day. Sarah flinched but didn't argue. I know you're angry at him. You have every right to be. I'm furious, I admitted. I'm so angry I can barely breathe sometimes. 35 years, Sarah. He lied to me for 35 years. Every time he told me he loved me, every anniversary we celebrated, every moment I thought we were building a life together. It was all tainted by this secret. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. It's not your fault. You didn't ask to be born into this situation. But Sarah, you need to understand what you're asking of me. You want to be part of this family, but that family is broken now. Tom wants nothing to do with you. Jenny's the same. They see you as the evidence of their father's betrayal, and they can't get past that. I know. I never expected them to welcome me with open arms. She struggled to find the words. I just wanted them to know I exist, to know that they have a sister who would love to know them, if they'd let her. I thought about Tom's anger, about Jenny's tears, about how this revelation had shattered their image of their father, tarnished every memory of the man who'd raised them. Give them time, I said. They might come around. Or they might not. I can't promise you anything. I understand. What about you, Mrs. Chen? Do you think you can ever? She trailed off, not quite daring to finish the question. Forgive you for breaking into my house. Yes, I think I already have. Forgive your father. I don't know. Maybe. Eventually. I paused, choosing my next words carefully. Accept you as part of this family. Sarah, I honestly don't know. This is all so new, so raw. But I'm willing to try. I'm willing to get to know you, to understand who you are beyond this crisis. Can that be enough for now? Yes, she said, relief flooding her face. Yes, that's more than I ever hoped for. We talked for another hour. She told me about her childhood, about the schools she'd attended, about her mother's illness and death. I told her about David, the real David, not the distant figure who'd sent emails and money. I told her about his terrible jokes, his love of old jazz music, the way he'd burn everything he tried to cook except for his famous spaghetti sauce. And slowly, I began to see my late husband through new eyes. Not as a villain, but as a flawed man who'd made a terrible choice when he was young and spent the rest of his life trying to manage the consequences. A man who'd loved two families but could only claim one. A man who'd carried crushing guilt for decades. It didn't excuse what he'd done, but it helped me understand it. There's something I want to give you, Sarah said, reaching into her bag. She pulled out a worn notebook. My mom kept a journal. In it, she wrote about Dad, about their relationship, about me, about everything. I thought maybe you'd want to read it. To understand her side of the story. I took the notebook with trembling hands. Are you sure? I'm sure. You deserve to know the whole truth, not just my version of it. That night, after Tom had reluctantly gone to sleep in his childhood bedroom, I sat in David's study and read Marie Brennan's journal. Page after page of her neat handwriting, telling a story I'd never known. She'd loved David. That much was clear. But she'd also known he didn't love her back, not the way she loved him. When she'd told him she was pregnant, he'd offered to marry her, but she'd said no. She could see he was in love with someone else. With me, though the journal didn't mention my name. I won't trap a man who doesn't love me, she'd written. But I will accept his help raising our child. Sarah deserves a father who cares, even if he can't be there every day. The later entries chronicled Sarah's childhood. Her first words, her first day of school, David's brief visits. And throughout it all, Marie's understanding that this arrangement, however imperfect, was better than forcing David into a life he didn't want. He's a good man in an impossible situation, she'd written when Sarah was 10. He provides for us. He shows up when he can. He loves our daughter in his own way. I can't ask for more than that. The final entry was dated 2 months before Mary died. I'm scared of what will happen to Sarah after I'm gone. David is her only family left, but he's still keeping her a secret. I want to be angry about that, but I'm too tired. I just hope he finds the courage to tell the truth before it's too late. Sarah deserves to be more than a secret. I closed the journal and pressed it to my chest, crying for Marie, for Sarah, for David, and for myself, for all the ways love can be complicated and messy and heartbreaking. 3 weeks later, I was planting bulbs in my garden when Tom came outside and sat on the porch steps watching me work. I've been thinking, he said finally, about what you said. About choosing compassion. I sat back on my heels, brushing dirt from my gloves. And I think I'd like to meet her. Not 'cause I'm ready to call her my sister, but because she was important to Dad, and maybe I need to understand why. My heart swelled. Really. But I'm doing it for you, Mom. And for Dad's memory, not for her. Not yet. That's okay. That's enough. 2 days later, the four of us met at my house: Tom, Jenny's who'd driven down from Portland after Tom called her, Sarah, and me. It was awkward and uncomfortable. Tom barely spoke. Jenny cried twice. Sarah looked like she might bolt at any moment. But we sat in my living room, the four of us, and we started talking. About David. About the past. About the impossible situation we'd all been left in. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't acceptance. It wasn't a happy ending. But it was a beginning. 6 months later, I was sitting in a different hospital room than the one where I'd said goodbye to David. This one was bright and full of hope. Jenny had just given birth to a beautiful baby girl, and as I held my granddaughter for the first time, I felt something shift inside me. Life moved forward. People made mistakes. Families got broken, and sometimes, if you were lucky, they found ways to heal. Tom and Jenny had started having coffee with Sarah occasionally. They weren't close, might never be close, but they were trying. That was something. Sarah had gotten a job in her own apartment. She still called me sometimes just to talk. I'd shared more stories about David with her, and she'd shared Marie's memories in return. Slowly, we were building something. Not a traditional mother-daughter relationship, but something. As I looked down at my granddaughter's perfect face, I thought about all the secrets we keep, all the lies we tell ourselves and others. I thought about how David's one choice, made when he was young and scared, had rippled out across decades and affected so many lives. But I also thought about how we'd survived it. How we'd found a way to move forward. Have you chosen a name? I asked Jenny. She glanced at Marcus, then at Tom, then at Sarah, who was standing quietly in the corner of the room. Marie? Jenny said softly. We're naming her Marie, after Dad's first child's mother. Sarah gasped, tears streaming down her face. Jenny, you don't have to. I want to, Jenny said firmly. Marie deserves to be remembered. And Sarah deserves to be part of this family, even if it takes time for us to figure out what that means. I looked around the room at my children, all of them, biological and otherwise, and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. We weren't perfect. We were still healing. But we were choosing forward, choosing compassion, choosing to be better than the secrets that had defined us. And somewhere, I like to think David was watching, finally at peace with the truth that had haunted him for so long. Baby Marie opened her eyes and looked up at me, and I smiled through my tears. Welcome to the family, sweetheart, I whispered. It's complicated and messy and not always fair, but it's yours. All of it is yours.